のは、本当に、誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は、
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Benedese. Her beautiful day. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is squab, and that also means elephant.
Ça, ça, c'est ça, che c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyper Polyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues. 10:159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Month. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bangvas, okay, Bangvas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré, des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré, des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente... è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo. Io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io.
I buy a computer or what? And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or sounds vaguely like Hogun and the hok in Hogun in Korean or Waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur, ça son chassé, ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt. Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora y editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idiomas, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más. Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten zwei tschechische Schwalben. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos.
Oh, I see. This is Diche Ishai Fui, which means do you want food? But yeah, are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cocine tapor. Poso milao. Pote. Buenas proteine. Utros protoculo. In the designated chicken eating area, obviously.
Okay, still 3 times I have to defeat him. And I don't have a whole lot of health left.
Liv. Monsieur.
See.
Livre. Liwe livla.
Paks,
Mustan kissan paksut posket.
Matjeje,
Ja.
ja, si, vysoký. Matjeje. Proč? Víte. Počkej. A. Si. Trakseks.
Aspri petra xes aspri apton ilio xex asproteri. Aspri petra xes aspri apton ilio xes asproteri.
Den coginio panas.
Oh boy.
Ad ferad verda ferda vetri.
Hakab. Hefed.
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 Hefed. Hefed. Hek. Hek. Hek.
Саша по шоссе.
А Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку. А Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку.
Mwalimu.
This is Arabic. And it's from Mu'allim.
Juma ni mwalimu mke. Trakt.
Ирак чима в чипах, чемп, чавю, ченчи, чини. Чирак чима в чипах, да, чирак чима в чипцах, чемп, чавю, ченчи, чини. Бакакит кальшит. Хикрине. Бакакит кальши, хикрине. Akakitsalshi Krikrips.
Oh, things do cats on this. Meow and the pictures of the fish. That's they were proud.
Sööpä. Kupu. Yrittävät. Puraista. Omena.
in the city center. And it's got some interesting aspects to it.
여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까?
Countries or living things.
兄の名前は
Lo que pasa es que bueno, la manera, y esto se ve en tantos lugares, no es cuestión regional, sino más bien de un problema fundamental de la pedagogía oficial de los idiomas extranjeros, y que la manera en que se enseñan en tantos lugares, en las clases, en el colegio, no tiene nada que ver con el estado actual de la investigación sobre lo que se llama adquisición de idioma.
Doesn't, you can try something else.
In fact, I would say often you really know you're getting it with languages if you can't really explain why something's right, but you just bloody well know it's right.
Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital
還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula giderim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is sword, and that also means elephant.
ça, ça, ah c'est ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco. Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyperpolyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10:159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nei. Man. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bangba, okay, Bangbas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré, dégénéraux dégénéré. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré, dégénéraux dégénéré. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente, è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo, io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi, dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io.
I buy a computer or what? Here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or sounds vaguely like hogun and the hook in hogun in Korean or waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur, c'est son chassé, ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Der dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt. Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora y editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idioma, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más. Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten zwei tschechische Schweine. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos.
Oh, I see. This is Diche Ishai Fui, which means do you want food? But yeah, are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cine da boy. Posso Milao. Pote. Buenese. Proteine. Utros. Protoculo. In the designated chicken eating area, obviously.
Okay, still 3 times I have to defeat him. And I don't have a whole lot of health left.
Monsieur.
Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I'm Elise, translator, writer, editor, and YouTube creator, and, well, Twitch streamer as well, with 20 working languages. And this is a stream where we're going to be talking about the best and worst of YouTube language learning resources and stuff like that, and playing some GeoGuessr. As we start out, here's just a fun language fact that may be of use to comedy writers, but probably not. The Czech word for breakfast sounds a lot like the Afrikaans for it's not there. For example, Oi, hoe zijn mensen ontbijten hier die land? Snidani. Ik weet Snidani. Dus hoe kom ik jou moest vragen hoe om dit te fucking bestel? Cue the more you know. Okay, and so let's get stuck into some GeoGuessr. Once I get my windows where I need them to be so I can see what's going on. Have to have everything organized so I know where everything is. Okay. Scotland are not having a great time against Germany. Not exactly surprising. 4-0 for anyone who's following it and not watching it just now. Okay. Where the hell are my windows? There we go. Chat where I can see it. Mapa clásico. Ahora vamos. Okay. Slow. Okay, my immediate thought is probably Britain or someplace British controlled. Fans look right for it as well. The markings on the road. What's the sign here at the car park say? Too blurry. Yeah, left side driving. Non c'è da. Scene. Yeah. Like Worksus. It's Britsus. Oh, let's see that. Oi. Saltergate Bank. Speed now. Saltergate Bank. Okay. So, like it. This was Scotland. Second. Scene. Het waarschijnlijk een A-paard. Het is tweesporig. Het is niet Wales-sneeuw. Die kan rijden. Ask scaffolding. Dat belooft niet. Hij is mondelijk dat het Evan is. Somerset. Hub. Oké. Een nummer nodig. Dat is wat ons nodig. Dat is wat ons nodig. Zien waar ons is. Ik niet is die Schotse Highlands. Nee. Het lijkt eenvoudig niet zo. Elk, Devon, Dartmoor, zoiets. Dramatische landschap. Gaan we weer. Nee, dit is niet Dartmoor. Dit is spoortjes. En niet Dartmoor dit nee. Dat is te groot. RAF Fylingdales. Hello Jamie, how you getting on? Hey Exon. RAF Fylingdales, that's what we're near. I have no idea where Fylingdales is. It feels... could be Yorkshire, maybe? Oh hey, we got on A road. Eindelijk hit onze A-pad. A-pad. A169. Nice. The M180. So... what, it's 5-0 now? A17's, A16's gotta be near. Scotland are not having a great time. Orlando Pimentel, como vai? Thetford, Kent. 12. Now where is bloody... yeah, okay, there's like everything but A16, A19. Okay, we're gonna zoom in a bit, maybe that's the problem. A165, well, A164. A16 has to be near here because those are branch roads. A16, there we are. So A169 is what we're after though. A165. A170. A17. A16 is still there. British road numbering system is much easier to work with than some because it's all spoke-based. The spokes come out of London. A bit suboptimal since London is not in the middle of the country, but at the very least, it gives you at least some prayer of finding it. Closely related numbers are close to each other. Whitney, Horton, Scartho. Scartho? Sounds like a Marvel villain. A164. A165. What the fuck? Saltergate! Okay, here we go. There's Fillingdales. Okay. Let's see if we can find the Saltergate Inn, because there was a... Where we go? Well, we're going southeast, so... Oh! Is that where Men with Hill is? Ah, there we go. A4169. A169. Partridge Nest. Odds and Cottage. The Plough. That must be one of the most common pub names. YHA Bogglehole. Ah, so spying on extraterrestrials. Making sure they don't use TikTok. Okay, I feel like this must be where we are. Saltergate A169. Okay, no. Hutton Hole, Hockley, Cropton. Okay, it's coming down from Whitby. Okay, on Whitby, Gothland, Saltergate. The first thing we saw was a pub called like the Saltergate Inn that was in construction. 5,000. Perfect score. Good start, good start. Okay, this feels vaguely Scandinavian or German. My immediate first guess. Sadie Bins. Okay, there's a lot on that bin, but none of it actually tells me it. Can't make that out. Sir. Riette van de Maaistraat. Okay. That sounds pretty Dutch. Let me see what color these number plates are. Yellow number plates, it looks like, okay, we're in the Netherlands. Okay, get on a main road. Well, my main approach that I always use and that has gotten good results for me has been to just kind of find as much stuff in the language that I actually care about, that I'm actually interested in, and spend a lot of time engaging with it. In fact, I mean, one of the things I often start with is I will find a translated edition of a book that I practically know by heart in my target language, and then read it. Like, usually it's The Firm, just because I know it by heart, it's easy to find, I've read it a million times. Arriva! They're everywhere. Bloody hell. Absolute shite trains. Shocking. I mean, the other thing I like to do, especially early on, is like how-to videos. Is a good how-to video. This is something I talk about a lot on here, because it's a method I really appreciate. I've gotten a lot out of it myself. A good how-to video will actually show you and tell you at the same time, which sort of bridges comprehension gaps, since especially early on, you don't necessarily have a whole lot of vocabulary. So if you see people doing stuff at the same time as you hear them talking about what they're doing, that helps a lot to bridge comprehension gaps, render things comprehensible, and you gradually learn more and more. I didn't actually mean to make this turning, but who cares? Okay, yeah, Van der Werf, IGU en L, ja, Nederlands. Okay, maar waar zijn we? Waar zijn we? Waren we? Eimans. I was on a main street a minute ago. Well, the first thing is, why did they revert to 4-0? Okay, the first thing is, I do not, there's no real evidence that, like, explicit grammar instruction, explicit grammar study, and grammar exercises, and all that nonsense actually achieves anything. What really works for grammar, offside or something, I wouldn't wonder, is a lot of pleasure reading. Come on, give me go someplace at least. I mean, we're definitely in the Netherlands. We're in a very pretty area of the Netherlands, but like, there's so much GeoGuessr coverage of the Netherlands. It's not very helpful. Ah, hell. Oh, look, a windmill way off in the distance. To remind us, we are, in fact, in the Netherlands. So, like, a lot of reading is really useful when it comes to grammar. Grammar study. Ah, Dutch flags as well. Yeah. Leiden. Okay, we know where we are. We know what city we are in anyway. Oh, Scotland are coming back, are they? Nice. Or Leiden. Rijksmuseum Boerhaven. Okay, we know we're near a canal. We also know that that's kind of not particularly helpful information in the Netherlands, because you're kind of always near one no matter where you are. Herengracht. Well, Georgian would be one. To a certain extent, also isiZulu. That's one that I've wanted to learn properly for a while. It's harder to find resources there. But lately, one thing I've been doing is just watching, like, the South African, the SABC state TV news. They do it in isiZulu and a bunch of other languages. And so I use that. Off and on, also Amharic. So again, finding great resources is also difficult there. Peugeot Leiderdorp. Er staat Snoepweg. De Houtkamp. Moezenlaan. Burgerhoek. Probably have a bit of an Afrikaans accent when I speak Dutch. This point because I just do more Afrikaans than Dutch. Oh, the spoorbaan. Julianakade, Sofiestraat, Wielsestraat, Oude Singel. I learn languages mostly because I'm just interested in them. I've never specifically gone for a language just because it was like commercially worthwhile or something like that. It's just I'm curious about a language and so I want to learn about it. That's kind of always what it's been. Okay. Rotterdam, Amsterdam. Zwolle, Alkmaar. Oega. No, jij estamos en Bélgica. Eindhoven. Oh man. $49.89. Not bad. What languages are you into, Jamie? Okay, right side driving. We know that right off the bat. I'm thinking North America. It's hard to say for sure. Rays Harbor. Harbor spelled O-R. That sounds US. And 30 miles per hour. Yeah, okay, we're in the US. I guess we're near something called Gray's Harbor. That feels New England to me. It feels like we could be in Maine. Oh, Palace Beach. Okay, coastal. Oh, Britain, cool. That is one I'm curious about as well. Anyone who bet on Scotland to win, and if they pull it off, they will probably clean up, because the odds are definitely against them. LeMay Incorporated, a 360 area code. Okay. I'm feeling like maybe this is Maine. I mean, for one thing, just all the forest, and it just definitely does not feel West Coast to me. Yeah. Feels like Northeastern. Oh, wow! I'm very interested in that. Are you in the Discord? I don't know if the bot will allow you to post a link in chat, but I would love to have a look at that. The Google Street View API is being annoying. Oh, hang on. I should have updated that. Let me give you an invite that is valid. Welcome! Enjoy the random cute picture that you've been welcomed with. Yeah. Gray's Harbor Fire District number 7. Okay, I'm gonna just do a little exploring around. Hey, Joe K, how you doing? I think we're in New England. Oh, not too bad. Ah, I got the link, thank you. Et le breton facilement. Choisissez votre cours ou une activité. And let me just pop that link in here into chat for anyone else who wants to check this out. Looks like it is for French speakers specifically, which is not surprising. Oh no, wait. Français, Britannic, English, Espanol, Dutch, Cymraeg. Oh wow, there's Breton. Wow, neat. There's Breton for Welsh speakers here. It's got Llydaweg and how. Dewiswch. Ich level ne riw weithgaredd. Mae'r lefelau yn seiliedig fframwaith cyfeirio Ewropaidd cyffredin ar gyffredinlaethoedd. Cyn I chi ddechrau, lefel A1, lefel darganfod, lefel sylfaen, B1, level C1. Okay, that is not actually available yet, it doesn't look like. Deskit, Prejonic Ice. Deskit, ah! Deskit Visky. Okay. Les lettres, alphabet breton. Les consonnes. Consonne 2. Yeah, okay, neat. I mean, this does. I have to say, methodologically speaking, it looks very sort of the conventional, not particularly effective methods that are used in schools. But it looks like it could be a cool resource, though. Hey, River Rune. Wow, chat's actually filling up. Sometimes chat is pretty dead here. Looking around, I think we are in... I think we're in Maine. It feels like Maine. Or someplace anyway. Ray's Harbor. Feels northeastern to me somehow. Yeah, for Breton there really isn't a great deal. I spent a morning in Brittany a few years back. Pacific Beach. Okay, I was way wrong. We're in Washington. .109 by 109. Totally wrong end of the country. Palace Beach. Rose. Yeah, where is Gray's Harbor? Hogan's Corner. Oyat. Campbell Slough. Oh, Gray's Harbor City. There we go. Oh. $49.33. I may very well be about to beat my record. Okay. 2 more to go. Okay, what have we got? We've got a yield sign. Céder le passage. On est en France. Non, il faut un numéro de route parce que les rois. Une idée. Gagné en Roussillon. Roussillon, ok. Un endroit que je connais, hein. Languedoc-Roussillon. C'est près de Perpignan. We're in southern France, near Perpignan, where the railway station there. It's a very special railway station because, like, it seems to be where they send all of the assholes working for the French railways. I had a lovely experience there, like back in, what would that have been, like 2013, I think? 2000, something like that. No, 2010 probably. Where I was trying to get to Barcelona. And there was a, Cagnes-en-Roussillon. There was a railway straight. Cagnes-en-Roussillon. Oh là, on y est. Paris, bon pas. And the thing was, I got my first train out of Paris to get down to Perpignan, which is where the border was going to be, where I had to change because my Eurail pass did not include Spain, so I wanted to get as close to the border on that pass as I could before switching over to Spanish rail. And so Perpignan was my destination to get there. And the train that would have allowed all of this to work just fine was out of Paris was canceled. So I ended up like 2 hours delay getting to Montpellier, with getting on the train out of Montpellier with like maybe 30 seconds to spare. And getting to Perpignan just as all the ticket windows and stuff were closing. Meanwhile, I could not get the cash point to engage with my card, so I was having to use cash. And the only way, and they had a rail replacement bus. 49.86. Okay, we are really getting close to my record here. So the thing is, the only way to get a ticket for the rail replacement bus was to use a ticket machine. Walmart, okay, that is indicative. And the ticket machine would not take notes. And all I had was like €100 note. So they don't have any way to make change. Do not block drive. Okay, definitely looking North America. So there's still a shop open. Like a William, W.H. Smith kind of place. And so I go in there. And so I try to buy the cheapest thing that I can possibly find. Wood Forest Bank Stadium. And then I ask, could you give me, could you give me change, give me €1 coins rather than a tenner, because I need change for the ticket machine. They're like, no. And I'm like, okay. So I go back, and so I go back to the machine just to see if maybe I was wrong. And I go to the info desk because it was the only thing that was still open. And I'm like, I need to get a ticket on the rail replacement bus to Barcelona. Can you just break this €10 note for me? And they're like, no. And so it's like, okay. I'm just trying at this point to find some way. I'm low-key losing my shit at this point. So I'm just kind of walking around with my tenner out, asking people, look, can you just give me change for this 10 so I can get on the rail replacement bus, because nobody will make change for me, and it's the only way I can get on the fucking bus. And eventually, a security guy comes up to me and he's like, "Ici on ne fait pas de monnaie," and it's like, and just like kicks me out, tells me to fuck off. Like, all I'm trying to do is get a ticket. I'm not, I'm not trying to scam anybody. I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to pay for the ticket, which they've made bloody impossible. And then, so I go back, and I try to find something that will force them to give me coins at the shop. Something so cheap that I can buy it with a tenner, and I will, but expend and still have substantial change back, but expensive enough that it can't be a $5. And can we get onto a main road here, or are we just gonna go from one bloody car park to the next? Hey, Erica, long time no see. How you doing? Dave and Buster's. Like, are we just in an endless strip mall? Is this the bad place? So, not bad. Okay, another bloody car park. It's just nothing but car parks. I believe we are in the US. Well, no, because there are army bases. It's a strip mall with cops and an army. Oh, finally, an actual road. Houston. Okay, we're in Houston, and we're by a stadium that I've already forgotten the name of. So anyway, they still don't give. I still don't get the change I need, but I somehow managed to find the a few more €1 coins that had just been buried in my purse or something, and I get the ticket. And then I go out to try to find the fucking bus. Oh wait, this is Dallas. Wrong part of Texas. There's a lot of Texas. And so I go out front of because they say this bus is going to be out front of the stadium. Well, I mean, it says myhoustonsurgeons.com on that ad there. That suggests to me that we are in or near Houston. And we're by a stadium, the name of which I don't remember, but we can get back soon enough. Now we're in a singularity, though. Yeah, something like that. It had bank in it. Yeah. So then it turns out that there are like 100, 200 people standing around outside the station. And we're all asking each other where this replacement bus is supposed to be. And nobody knows. So every time a bus shows up, we're all just chasing after the thing. Because nobody knows what's going on with anything. Texas 242. (261) There's Decoy Pasadena. And then eventually, you know, it gets dark, and I'm beginning to wonder if maybe this bus isn't coming either. And nobody else seems to know, and we've all just been running back and forth from one end of the station to the next every time a bus shows up, in hopes that it is the right one. Yes, River Room, thank you for that artistic rendering. The Mahatma Gandhi District, named... Oh, fuck off, Nightbot. The Mahatma Gandhi District, named after the totally non-violent way by which Texas was settled. .249. Where the hell's 242? Eventually we get the right bus. And we get on it, and the best part of all this, the best part, is nobody even checked the tickets. I didn't really need a ticket. Nobody looked. Nobody at any point took any interest in whether we had tickets. So I basically just went through all of that for nothing. And then I got to Barcelona, and the first full day I was there, I got robbed twice. In the same place, within like 1 hour of each other. First, somebody made off with my computer bag, my laptop, various prescriptions of mine and stuff. And then, while I was off trying to see if I might find the person who did that, which was silly, I know. 4814. Yeah. Yeah, they managed to get my wallet with which, I mean, with some cards that actually were kind of worthless at that point because I had like fuck all in my account. I was waiting to get paid but hadn't yet. 24,722, 200 points, a little under 200 points short of my record. My record is 24,911, so I got very close there. I've never managed a perfect score on 5 out of 5 before. Oh, I saw your question in the Discord, Erica. I am streaming on Twitch, but not today. since I'm an affiliate on Twitch, I can't simulstream. So on Fridays I stream on YouTube, and then on Saturdays I stream on Twitch. Oh yeah, I mean it was really something. I have to say, I mean, like, my experience in France overall is more positive. Like, I know, like, including like French speaking people from the States who will who like described as really not having been. I just kind of randomly stuck it in central Dallas, and it was in a northern suburb called Woodlands, where all the creatures live. Like, my experience of, like, French people in France has generally been very positive. But not in Perpignan. Not at Perpignan Station. At Perpignan Station, I just ran into one asshole after another. Odvesna. Looks check. Gonna look at a couple of videos and stuff. There are a few things I'm kind of curious about. There's this guy who keeps showing up in my YouTube recommendations called Language Jones, whose titles really kind of rub me the wrong way. I don't know if he ends up doing something good inside the videos, but I have questions. And so I'm kind of curious looking at what he has to say. He's apparently a linguist. And one video that keeps on showing up in my recs is 6 reasons the gender-critical right and the woke left are both wrong about pronouns. And it's like, on the one hand, the fact that they've sort of, he's situated TERFs on the right, I mean, that's kind of encouraging, but on the other hand, making it about the woke left immediately kind of gets my spidey sense going. And I'm kind of curious what these 6 reasons are and whether they're any good. So I was thinking of checking that out. Well, I watched the most recent of those, and I have to say, like, they expose the signs and red flags thing. I have to say, I wasn't really impressed with his tips, because for one thing, he relies really heavily on the State Department's figures on how long it takes to learn a language, and those figures are not particularly convincing because they don't really say what that means, what kind of knowledge you would have at the end of this period, and also they're relying on the State Department's methods. And when I was growing up and, relying on the Cincinnati Public Library for my language learning needs, there were a lot of languages where the only thing you could get was State Department Foreign Service language textbooks. And maybe in the past 40 years almost, they have improved. I would hope so. But I will say, the textbooks I've seen are all shit. So, I mean, relying heavily on the State Department's ideas of how long it takes to learn a language strikes me as not a particularly reliable way basis on which to say somebody isn't for real. And then there was he had a thing as complex grammar, do they use any complex grammar? Well, think about it. Think about your normal, just everyday conversation in your native language. How much really complex grammar do you actually use? And how is this a useful tip for the people that are going to have the hardest time spotting somebody who is not for real? are going to be people who don't really speak the language very well. Those people are not going to be in a great position to be identifying complex grammar in the language, because they're most likely not going to understand a lot of the words in the first place. And really, spoken language tends to be where there is the least of it. I mean, the most really complex grammar is almost entirely in writing and in really sort of formal conversation. I mean, plus there's also a whole question of what really constitutes complex grammar. Like, I would say the come-go distinction in English is complex grammar, because it is deceptively simple. There is all sorts of complicated stuff just hovering right below the surface. But, that is not, explaining the rule is really complicated. In fact, I mean, when you look at, linguists talk about, the amount of rules they can account for in a language tends to be very well below the number of rules they expect there to be, and well above the number of rules that, prescriptive grammars will talk about. Like, that wasn't an example he used, and it's not an example a lot of people would think of as complex grammar, but when you start looking at how come and go are used in context, it actually is pretty complex. So I'm kind of curious about this video. I have not watched it yet, so I'm just going to say a bit of a content warning here. At the very least, there is going to be discussion of transphobic shit. I'm hoping that the video itself does not contain it, but I'm not entirely encouraged by the title.
Pronouns.
Yeah, we've all done that. Pronouns. Like, okay. While we're doing this, I think we're someplace Czech or Slovak, judging from the street sign that I saw.
I've been a little afraid to make this video, honestly. But
oh God. This is not increasing my confidence that this is going to be a legit discussion. It really is not.
I guarantee you need to hear what I have to say. Everyone...
okay. When I turn this into a VOD, I think I'm going to have a, sort of trustometer of some sort on the screen that just keeps on going down as he talks, because, he's prefacing this with all sorts of, with more red flags than fucking Mayday.
Everyone's talking, yelling about pronouns nowadays. Verbs, adjectives, even nouns don't get this level of attention.
Wow. So what?
But for those of us who actually study pronouns, and even publish in academic journals about them, and there are dozens of us, it's hard to watch the public conversation become increasingly unhinged.
Oh God. Yeah. I'm already, at this point, hey, Hyojong! Okay, at this point, there are more red flags than Mayday in Pyongyang. See you later, Erica. Good to see you here.
Unfortunately, plenty of well-meaning linguists add oil to the pronoun fire, too. Some of the confusion, anger...
Are we gonna pretend that this is actually about pronouns? Are we actually going to pretend that this is a discussion on popular linguistics? That's the reason that I immediately get a bit, suspicious about the fact that he phrases it as this discourse between the gender-critical right and the woke left. Trans people don't get a look in his framing there. But titles are imprecise, maybe he corrects for that. But with every single thing he's saying, I am less confident that is going to happen.
and vitriol is about language, and some of it is about gender. But there's also an overlooked third component related to culture. Today, I'm going to talk
Oh God.
about pronouns.
He's going to nuance, bro, this.
And neopronouns. What they are, why people are so worked up, and what regular folks like you and me...
Oh good, regular folks like you and me. Because, see, the people... Yeah, so, what the people who care about this aren't regular. Like, I don't know. Maybe this ends up being a good video that is badly framed, but, and I want to give the benefit of the doubt because I watched the wrong video first on Mikel Hyperpolyglot. And si me estáis viendo en algún momento, si estáis viendo esto, Mikel, pido disculpas. Because I looked at the wrong video. I looked at this one that was like, why I don't don't do videos in other languages first, and I should have looked, and I should have like tried to dig a little bit further to see the video where he's actually speaking them. That's why I cut that out of the VOD in on Twitch, that segment.
To navigate this cultural moment. Let's get
cast suspicion that really was not warranted.
into it. I'm Dr. Taylor Jones, a straight, cisgendered man, and this is probably a mistake.
I can already say, like, definitely a mistake. And I mean, from the first 53 seconds of this thing, I never would have guessed that he was a cis straight guy.
This is Language Jones. So it's been a little longer than usual between videos. I tried to film something last week, but I had COVID, and it did not go well. So anyway, I'm back.
And now, the main attraction.
What are your pronouns? Many of you have asked or been asked this question. Maybe in person, maybe introducing yourself to a new group of people.
Okay. We're walking out on a limb of benefit of the doubt to see where this goes, because
maybe even on a survey or questionnaire. And if you haven't asked or been asked this, you know that people do ask and answer it. Profiles on Twitter might have he/him or she/they listed. Unquestionably, there's a societal shift happening in the Anglosphere.
Yeah, I mean, and this is one thing I have to say from another video that I saw. He is trying to phrase this as if it's just going on in the Anglosphere. I mean, he does this, he sort of acts like there's some sort of debate over where X as a gender-neutral suffix in Spanish comes from, because right-wingers in the US have claimed that the X in Latinx is something that was made up by, like, woke people in the US, which is bullshit. It is easily demonstrably false. You can actually, if you spend any time in South America in the past, like, 20 years, you know that X as a gender-neutral suffix was already well established amongst queer people, feminists, and the left in general in Latin America, specifically in South America, well before it was ever used in the US. I have not seen it in Brazil specifically, but it would not surprise me. I mean, and in other parts of the Spanish-speaking world, in Spain, for example, they were achieving the same thing by using an @ symbol, arroba, because it looks like an O with an A around it. I mean, an A with an O around it. It was well established, and he acts like this was some sort of a debate, and it isn't. It just absolutely isn't. The reason Latinx, in particular, does not show up very much outside of the US is not because it's the X as a gender-neutral suffix is not used outside of the outside of the US. It's because Latino, Latina, Latine is not a particularly meaningful descriptor for people in Latin America, because all it means is people of Latin American origins. That's basically everybody. It's not a distinguishing feature in Latin America. So naturally, the term skews heavily towards communities of Latin American origin living outside Latin America, particularly in North America. So, but okay.
And elsewhere. It's largely
He
motivated
does say and elsewhere.
by a desire to be inclusive and welcoming to the portion of the population that self-identifies as either trans or gender non-conforming, which all basically
self-identifies as trans or... It's okay. Another, like...
boils down to not
Why not just is? Why not just say is?
Self-identifying the same way other people might initially categorize you, especially around binary sex categories, male, female, man, woman, etc. Depending on who you ask and which surveys you trust, that's either less than 1% of the population or like 20% of people. Some people are very supportive of this shift and others are very unhappy about it.
It's a shift. See, notice that we basically... The whole thing is being phrased... First of all, it's just people who self-identify as... Like, as opposed to just saying people, you could just say trans or gender non-conforming people. And I immediately have my doubts about somebody who uses this language, although I've also known people who were trying to get it right, who used that thinking that was actually the better way to say it, but they did not understand why that actually sucks.
About it. But here's the thing. The majority of people I've seen on all sides are wrong about most of what they're talking about.
Well, yes, enlighten us. Why are, both sides? There are both sides to this. There are trans people and there are people who don't want to acknowledge that there are trans people. Those are the both sides. But the cishet white dude is going to tell us all about how, most of what they're talking about, they're wrong. I am filled with confidence right now.
I'll always come down on the side of kindness and inclusion. But
it's even in the subtitles, it's a big but.
A lot of us are going about that wrong too.
Okay, how so?
And sometimes kindness and inclusion are in, we'll say, tension with what we perceive to be truth and honesty.
Okay, yes, that is a big but, and I cannot lie. Yeah, this is, okay. The benefit of the doubt meter at this point is actually starting to hit empty. All of this is when you hear this sort of thing, and I'm not going to say 100%, I'm not going to say that this is 100% always the case, but very often when you hear these kinds of prefaces to somebody who's about to talk about trans issues, they're about to say some transphobic shit. Because notice that first he talks about self-identifying as trans or whatever. And now he's saying that kindness and inclusion of trans people, people who self-identify as trans, whatever the hell that means, are in tension with what people perceive to be truth and honesty. Okay, this is not good, my dude. This is not good. Can you save this? I don't know. Can Scotland save their match with Germany? Theoretically, they could score 5 goals in one half, but it doesn't feel very likely.
So here's 6 reasons why you are wrong about pronouns. 1, you're wrong about what pronouns even are. Many people arguing about pronouns have only the vaguest idea of what pronouns are.
Okay, and you realize, and this is going to be relevant to a discussion about treating trans people with respect. How? Because let's just remember, that is what we are actually talking about. It's not about pronouns. The people who are talking about this often have the vaguest idea. It is true, a lot of them have no idea what pronouns are. They'll say, I will never use pronouns, and of course you just fucking used one. But that's not what it's about. These are not people who have some sort of inordinate fascination with parts of speech. These are people who don't like trans people. And so far, he has barely even acknowledged that this is about trans people, or that there are trans people, or anything.
They're even worse at identifying pronouns than they are at identifying the passive voice.
I will say, one of the things that annoys the hell out of me, that passive voice thing, that's true. There's so many memes that go around that will show things as passive voice that are not. They serve the same purpose as passive voice, but they are impersonal constructions, agentless constructions. Those are two different things. They serve the same rhetorical and propagandistic purpose a lot of the time. They're not the same thing, damn it. I will admit that is the thing that annoys me. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, people who say there are no pronouns in the Bible, like, what the fuck does that even mean? Yeah, because they don't, but again, they don't give a shit about pronouns. These people are not sitting here, like, looking and being fascinated by the totally relative system of pronouns, relational system of pronouns that exists in Vietnamese versus, you know, more absolute pronouns that exist in, like, Indo-European languages and all that sort of thing. They don't care. This is not about that. They didn't give a shit about pronouns until they started to notice that using the right pronouns was a way to treat trans people with respect, and they don't want to do that.
So you have people out here saying that there are no pronouns in the Bible, and then turning around and saying, "Thou shalt not."
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, and yeah, it's easy to dunk on that because it's such nonsense, but it misses the fucking point. And Thought Slime actually did a really good video on how pointing out why this sort of nonsense is wrong misses the point. He did a thing, it was about Ben Shapiro's weapons grade bad takes. And he did a thing with the pronouns and, like, all that shit. But I'm gonna take a little bit of a bio break. I also have to check on some curry leaves I'm drying. I will be back in just a few minutes and we will continue this. Exercise in suspending disbelief. Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morförrätter än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula giderim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is squab, and that also means elephant.
Ça, c'est ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bienvenue à Hyper Polyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues. 10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. None. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bamba, okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente... è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo. Io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io.
I buy a computer or what? And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, what sounds vaguely like Hogun and the hok in Hogun in Korean or waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur, ça change chasser. Ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Der dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt. Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora, editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idioma, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más. Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten zwei tschechische Schweine. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos.
Oh, I see. This is Diche Ishai Fui, which means do you want food? But yeah, are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cine da boy. Posso Milao.
Okay, welcome back. And well, I mean, you're still here. I'm back, welcoming myself back, I guess. And we're looking at a video about 6 reasons the gender critical right and the woke left are both wrong about pronouns. And we're just seeing whether, I mean, so far it has been a red flag fest. And I have to say, the first thing we're already getting into is just not great. Thought Slime has this video on called Ben Shapiro's Weapons Grade Bad Takes, and one of the things he talks about is Ben Shapiro on pronouns and the singular they and stuff. And the point is, thank you, Hyojong. Umawayo. When the point is that by saying absolutely asinine things like I don't use pronouns, I'm never gonna use pronouns, I'm never gonna use them, or whatever. You know, the people doing this are doing this deliberately. They know what they're saying is asinine. And it distracts the conversation because a lot of liberals fall for the bait and immediately start saying, ha ha ha, he doesn't know what pronouns are. Instead of saying, this, you know, nonsense is being used to justify attacks on trans people.
What do you think thou is? Spoiler, it's a pronoun. Even the original language has pronouns in the nominative and pronominal suffixes in other cases. Pronouns in Biblical Hebrew are a whole separate complicated thing. You also have people saying sir or ma'am are pronouns.
Yeah, and again, I imagine so. But here, yeah, I mean, from a grammatical standpoint, no, they're not. They're forms of address. But the point is, what people are doing there is they are grouping together gendered aspects of language for addressing and referring to people in order to say, you know, that you need to respect people's genders and not misgender them. I mean, yeah, it's wrong to call those things pronouns, but let's like acknowledge what's going on there. And this is what I already just really don't like about this video, because he has not really acknowledged what is going on here.
Or bro or dude or guys. They're not. Those are gendered, yes, but they're terms of address that are not pronouns and do not function as pronouns.
No shit. It's true, but again, could we at least acknowledge why this is contentious? Could we acknowledge what the stakes of the discussion are before we get into, you know, sort of linguistics nerding our way through it and saying, yeah, these are actually, you know, these are other gendered parts of speech. I mean, it's true, but it's only of peripheral interest in this context.
Most of those terms of address are nouns. Regular old vanilla nouns. So pronouns are a category of word, and I'm being vague about what word means in linguistics, that stand in for a noun. They're reusable, so they're kind of like mutable variables in coding. If I talk about my friend Chris, after I've mentioned him, I can use a pronoun. Like I just did. It was him. Him refers to Chris, and...
Yes, I mean, all true, all absolutely right. I mean, but what the fuck does this have to do with the whole thing?
It refers to a pronoun. You might use him thousands of times a day, and it might refer to hundreds of different people. Pronouns are effectively a pointer to some noun the listener should be able to figure out from context.
Yeah, I mean, he's right about all of this, except for the part where this is what the discussion is about.
Across languages, pronouns differ in part by how much information they encode. Some languages make you choose a different pronoun depending on whether the thing referred to is singular or plural, or if there are precisely two. Some make you specify formality and social distance, like French, tu, informal, and vous, formal or plural, or early modern English, thou, informal, and you, formal.
I mean, not just early modern English. I mean, there are parts of England where thou is still used, in like Yorkshire and parts of the Potteries area.
Plural. Some languages have inclusive and exclusive we.
I will say one of my favorite features that I wish English had. Because so many times you will hear people say, we are all in this together, and it's accurate if you assume an exclusive we, which means we but not you. But of course, the confusion that they're trying to create is that that you're supposed to think it's an inclusive we including you.
Where they differentiate between us altogether and us but not you. Standard English doesn't distinguish between second person singular and plural. They're both you, but many informal varieties do, with everything from yous to yins to y'all. Some regions of the American South now have y'all as a semi-formal pronoun like French vous, and all y'all is the true plural. And some languages specify gender, some don't. English splits the difference and only specifies gender on third-person pronouns. Not I or you, but a special third person we're talking about, you and I. Other languages have gendered versions of I and you in addition to he, she, and it, and so on. That brings us to another thing that you're
all
wrong
of this
about.
stuff,
Two,
it's
you're
like-
wrong about gender.
Oh god, this is gonna be really bad. I mean, okay, like all the observations he made about the concept of a pronoun, totally correct, but it's like you're going to talk about the concept. I mean, what he's doing here is he's talking about the concept of a pronoun, and he wanted to make it relevant, I guess. And the way his device for making it relevant is to just say he's going to nuance the discussion around whether trans people should be treated with basic respect.
Gender is a word related to the word genre. It literally just means type or category. Part of the reason we talk about gender in language is specifically that linguists were trying...
Oh god, is he going to do the thing where people say gender does not refer to, like, gender as we use it in humans? Because as a linguist, he should know that's not how words work. That is just prescriptive bullshit. There is a whole fucking academic and philosophical and, popular discourse around gender as, like, the socially constructed aspects of, a socially constructed aspect of categorizing people as, like, male or female or non-binary or whatever.
Trying not to say sex. We can get into a more detailed discussion, but sex is the physiological and biological reproductive categories for a species. Humans are a sexually dimorphic species that...
No. Unless you just pretend intersex people don't exist.
...reproduces by combining a small mobile gamete with a larger immobile gamete. And the...
Yeah, I mean, and here he's getting out of his field, and he's getting shit wrong as well. Because the thing is, much like species, sex in biology, like, and the reason if you actually look what biologists have to say about the concept of sex and sex in humans in particular, but elsewhere as well, they will say, actually, it is much more complicated than the sort of binary shit that you learn, in, like, second grade or whatever. For a simple reason. Because these are categories, like species, for example. Like, states of matter, that we are trying to map our understanding of these things onto stuff that exists in the world, of which our understanding is often incomplete. So, I mean, what the distinction he's trying to make here is already just not really accurate. And it's another just wonderful little red flag that tells me that, I'm not going to say that he's transphobic, but I mean, let me just say that if I were trying to prove I weren't, this is not how I would go about it.
Developing human is carried by the person with the larger gamete, unlike seahorses. This is a characterization of the species, not of individuals, who don't all fall into those categories. This is how I imagine humans in the Federation and Star Trek explain human sexes to aliens.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. You're clearly not, your whole thing is you're a linguist. He is a linguist, and the stuff he was saying about language just a second ago, apart again from this, the stakes of this discussion, what it is really about, we're right, but now he's getting into problems. Because he's talking about stuff that is totally outside of his area of expertise.
Explain gender. Before they problematize that. Before they get it on. Gender, on the other hand, means something in the social sciences, and something totally different when we're talking about language.
Yeah, but we're talking about the social sciences aspect of it. We're talking, and actually, really also about the biological aspect of it. Like, we're not talking about the gender of the word Dautish. We're not talking about that. Nobody is talking about, like, the genders of... First of all, because we don't really gender inanimate objects for the most part in English. We don't absolutely not do it. Like, you will hear people talk about, like, ships as she or whatever, and sometimes, like, vehicles or, pieces of equipment or something like that as she or whatever. Interesting, it's virtually always feminine there. But this isn't what we're talking about. We're not talking about grammatical gender. We are literally talking about the area where grammatical gender maps to to the gender of humans. So yeah, it means something different when we're talking about language, but dude, what are we that's not what we're really talking about here.
In the social sciences, it can be thought of as all the ways that we expect humans to act, speak, behave, and dress based on socially constructed categories. These categories are often, but not always, related to, but not determined by, sex distinctions. There are many
I will say that's better than expected.
cultures that famously have at least 3 social genders.
Okay, again, better than expected, but I mean, we're talking about the specific area where social genders and linguistic gender overlap. That is literally what we're talking about here. So, I mean, all the other stuff you can say, I bet he's going to point out that, like Bantu languages famously have a large number of genders, but actually, I mean, a lot of people have abandoned that language because it doesn't really make sense in context, because it is actually noun classifiers.
India to Thailand to some Native American cultures. In linguistics, though, it's categories for classes of nouns. English has masculine and feminine, basically on pronouns only, and we use those pronouns to talk about people, so you basically have to categorize them as one or the other if the referent is known to the listener. If not, I can do what I just did and say they or them for a singular referent.
Yeah, of course, non-binary people exist. Sometimes you use they for a singular referent because you know that is an accurate description of their gender.
Categorize them as one or the other. But other languages don't have genders that line up with biological sexual dimorphism. The word for woman in German is feminine, and man is masculine, but girl is neuter?
Yeah, because it has a suffix. It has a diminutive suffix that it turns everything neuter that it goes on. But this is not what I mean, this is closer to what we're talking about than other stuff, but like
in Dutch there's 2 genders, but both man and woman are common gender and girl is neuter. In Zulu,
yeah, again, because of a diminutive suffix.
There's 14 genders, but 6 are different classes, and another 6 are the plurals of the first 6.
Yeah, this is what I was just talking about with the Bantu language. In fact, a lot of the time, the term gender is abandoned in favor of noun class. Because a lot of the time it's like cylindrical objects, or languages, or foreign loanwords, or something like that. Not what we would generally think of as gender in a grammatical sense.
The last 2 make things into either verbs or abstract ideas. So Umuntu is a person, Abantu are people, Isintu is a race or humankind, and Ubuntu is the abstract concept of humanity. I have to use the U as the third person singular pronoun, no matter who I'm talking about. And
yeah, because actually when it comes to like gender, in the sense that matters for this context, everything's U. It does not really do gendered pronouns in the way that is relevant to this discussion, but he is so far away from this fucking discussion. It's like, I mean, this is interesting stuff from a linguistic standpoint. I find it fascinating. Like, as I said earlier, isiZulu is a language that I'm trying on and off to learn. I find this stuff fascinating. But this is not, I mean, if you want to talk about this stuff, talk about this stuff, but why do you have to frame it this way? Why do you have to, like, both sides it and situate it within the debate over whether trans people should be treated with respect?
Nobody can identify as C instead, because it would just not be understood. And even in languages where they're called, quote, masculine and feminine, a man is masculine and a woman is feminine, you still run into complications.
Hang on, Nightbot, what are you doing? Okay, Nightbot is just... Nightbot is bullshitting here. I thought I fixed Nightbot. Hang on, we're gonna get this sorted out. I'm sorry about this. Spam protection. Hang on, this is weird. Let's see, options. Uh, submit. I still don't know why Nightbot took out "Dude is just wrong." But yeah, okay. I adjusted the emote spamming thing because it put the cap at 3 emotes. That was the problem. I know this
In
is
French,
fascinating.
person is feminine, une personne. And the word for female genitalia, what linguists call the hoo-ha, is masculine, le vagin. Slang terms for the male member, like peep and beat, are feminine, because it's about linguistic categories, not...
Yeah, which is why this is actually, it's like, yeah. I mean, this is frustrating because, yeah, I mean, he's right, and this is interesting. I mean, it is interesting stuff. From a linguistic standpoint, I'm fascinated by this kind of thing. It's weird, it's neat. It makes very little sense, and yet we just sort of take it for granted. But you managed to, you framed this whole thing in a very specific way. And I notice we're talking about basically everything but what the framing would tell us you're talking about.
social or biological categories. By the way, if you speak other languages, now's the perfect time to leave me a comment below with the most interesting grammatical gender or the funniest mismatch that you've come across.
Like, really? If he had framed this in basically any other way, I would totally like this video.
Already discussed how in some other languages there's a move toward gender-neutral terms only for nouns and pronouns that refer to humans, which basically just makes an animate-inanimate distinction, which is, wait for it, another gender. Anyway, in English, there's a trend toward using what people sometimes call neopronouns. That's singular they for a named referent, or...
That's not really a singular they is not a neopronoun, though. So you can, I mean, can you really call it well, okay. Like, usually neopronouns refers to words that did not previously exist, that are being used as pronouns. Like Z or something like that in English. They, for a singular referent, already was well established. The only thing that is at all could be considered even remotely novel is using it for a known referent to acknowledge that they are non-binary.
Pronouns like ze or her. And you're all wrong about those too. Doubly wrong. 3.
Yeah. Okay. The way he's saying that, maybe this is going to be, maybe this one's going to be okay, but I mean, it's like, it's better than expected in some respects, but it misses the point.
You're wrong about how hard neopronouns are. First, you're wrong about how hard they are. In Intro to Linguistics, undergrads are often taught that pronouns are a, quote, closed class. This means that unlike verbs or adjectives, it's really hard to add new ones.
I mean, it happens less often. It definitely happens less often than nouns or verbs or adjectives. But calling it a closed class would suggest that it actually, that you never add anything, and that's definitely not true.
And yet new ones organically arise all the time. Vosotros is a relatively new pronoun in the history of Spanish. Portuguese has an impersonal a gente, and French has a generic on that can mean anything from the third person to the first person plural. Anything from the third person to the first person plural. To even first person singular if you don't want to take personal responsibility for what you're talking about. I've even co-authored work on how some forms of the N-word, yes, that one, meet the syntactic requirements for pronounhood in African American English.
I mean, actually, that is actually one of the features of AVE, that often nouns will stand in a way that actually is very, behave in a very pronoun-like way. And that kind of actually, I don't know whether this is in fact the history of it, but it does certainly fit in with a lot of non-Indo-European, including some African languages, that behave very similarly with pronouns. Like, where they are actually a noun taking a pronoun function.
And that's definitely a new development. And if it were so hard for us to learn new pronouns, I shouldn't be able to understand who use refers to or using myself with use guys. Besides, many of us learn foreign languages and somehow do fine learning new pronouns in different languages.
And use, it's worth noting. That has a long history in Ireland specifically, a place where the native language has singular, plural, and feminine, not feminine, but formal, informal, second-person pronoun distinctions. But again, his point is actually people add a new, there are pronoun add-ons more than you think, and that's true. When people are saying that it's hard, neo-pronouns are hard, I don't think for the most part that they're actually talking about that. They're talking about getting used to adding those things into their personal usage, which can be difficult because on an individual level, you're used to a certain stock of pronouns. So adding one in there becomes a little bit like learning another language on a very micro level. So, yeah, it's like this whole thing, apart from a couple of things where he was just wrong, it's like he's right about this, but it's just missing the point, and it feels really, there's sort of an icky feeling to that, because either he does not particularly care about the actual stakes of the discussion that he has sort of positioned himself in with this entire framing of this video, or he does care and he is trying to avoid being quite open, and he also, he does not, look at the way that he talked about objecting to using people's pronouns correctly or something like that, and he made it about that people feel it's at odds with their sense of honesty or something like that. No, they're fucking bigots. They don't like trans people. That's the problem. And if you don't name that, he's he's sitting here, that's actually legitimizing that. And that isn't good. We need to, we need to understand that when we're talking about this stuff, we are not not just talking about language. We are talking about the treatment of human beings, particularly
So saying,
marginalized
this is
human
Bex, they go by they, is not as impossible as people make it out to be.
Well, now, why do the people who make it out to be impossible say that, though? I mean, apart from people who say, okay, I know I'm going to screw this up a few times, please be patient, I really am I am going to get it right, and they do screw it up a couple of times, but on the whole, they get it right. But then the people who really go on about it being impossible are the people who don't want to do it, and who want to actually give comfort to other people who also don't want to do it because they don't like trans people and they don't like non-binary people and everything. And I think when we talk about language, I mean, I've heard people sometimes say, you talk about language, you want to keep, you try to separate language completely from society and politics and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, that is very artificial because language is social. The reason we have language, as far as anyone can tell, is because we're very social creatures, humans. Language is often political. The usage of it is often political. The reason that, he uses the N-word to refer to the N-word is precisely a political thing, namely the importance of treating the people who are meant by that with respect. And respecting that it is not a good look when, especially white people use it for all sorts of fucking historical reasons that are all horrible. You can't completely, there is no totally apolitical approach to language. And here, I mean, it's like, it's just icky. I just don't like, I really do not like the way he's done this.
But it's also not as easy as some people claim, which brings me to 4. You're wrong about how easy neopronouns are. There are plenty of studies that indicate that ambiguity in pronouns, in sentences like, he hit him, incur a processing cost.
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about, yeah. Because you have to assign the same placeholder, the same pronoun, to two different reference, yeah. But that's not what anyone's talking about here.
That is, they're annoying and make your brain tired. It's a higher cost when there's a perceived mismatch, like in Alice didn't like what Bob said, so he hit them.
Yeah, I mean, it takes getting used to, and of course, there's more than one way of that could actually mean, because in this scheme, he's saying, if you notice these numerals by Alice and Bob, and he and them, the assumption is Alice is he and Bob is them. That is definitely one possibility, but of course, depending on context, he hit them could actually be referring to somebody completely different. Like, say, there is a third person who is assisting Alice, and that third person's pronoun is he. And there are a group of people who have been told their asses are going to kick if Bob says the wrong thing, and be kicked if Bob says the wrong thing. And so Alice didn't like what Bob said. So he, the person helping Alice, hit those people. That's also a possibility. Yeah, I mean, there is, that sentence, but that's not the point. And the thing is, again, I mean, yeah, I think everybody in this discussion who is talking about it seriously knows it takes a certain amount of getting used to if there are new pronouns for a person you've always known by certain pronouns by default and never had to think about it. No, I don't think anyone thinks that that is 100% going to be always going to be a smooth shift. But yeah, there is a difference. The thing that people are pointing out is that there's a difference between people who are trying to make an effort to treat somebody with respect by, you know, gendering them in accordance with who they are, versus people who say, oh, it's really, really hard, and just never make a fucking effort. And again, I mean, this is what is just really maddening about this video, because the stakes are not acknowledged. And instead, he just goes off on these tangents, which are interesting tangents. They're absolutely interesting tangents. But, you know, you framed this in a certain way, and the stakes in the discussion that you framed it as part of are absolutely quite high. And so you can't just go off on these little tangents without acknowledging what this is about, if that's what you want to make it a part of. If you wanted to just do a thing about interesting stuff about pronouns, you probably wouldn't get quite as many views as throwing in, like, buzzwords like gender critical and woke would get. But at the very least, then you would not have to, you know, on the one hand, provide this framing that situates it within a discussion that is really about whether, you know, trans people should be treated decently. In order to have your video about all the wacky weird shit about noun classes and pronouns. I really do not like this.
And lots of experimental evidence from psycholinguistics shows that singular they for a named referent is harder to follow. There are translinguists who research pronoun use, and even they find that some people have an easier time and some people have a harder time with new, unusual, or unexpected pronoun use. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, nobody seriously denies that, though. Nobody seriously denies that that's the case.
To figure out who Z refers to. And it's harder to consistently remember to map a person to a new category like Z when we have a lifetime of practice mapping that person to she, for instance.
Yeah, true, and like totally uncontroversial.
There's a higher level of cognitive stress when we're in a social situation where we're expected to use pronouns we're not comfortable with. It's like all the stress of practicing a foreign language.
This video is annoying and makes my brain tired. And the wild thing about it is, if you were to just frame it differently, you know, I would really like this video. But he has framed it in a way that just immediately situates it in a place where it's just inappropriate.
With the additional element that you might deeply offend your listeners at literally any new sentence. And don't even...
Yeah, except again, people do understand when somebody fucks up versus when somebody is deliberately trying to give offense.
Think about just avoiding pronouns. If you say Alice saw Alice in the mirror and Alice liked how Alice looked, you sound like an absolute basket case. Plus, remember how I said that pronouns are like pointers in code? Well, the consensus in psycholinguistics is that as I said that sentence, you were instantiating new Alices all over the place, and then had to rectify that they all referred to the same Alice after the fact. The default is to make new conceptual objects you have to track, and that's fatiguing.
Well, I mean, and actually, this varies heavily from language to language. Like, there are languages where pronouns tend to be avoided. Japanese, to a great extent, does not use... I mean, there are pronouns there, but often what is used instead of a pronoun is another referent, like a title or the person's name or something like that. In fact, you know, including for like the second person. So there are languages where that sentence, Alice did, Alice said, Alice went and Alice did, and Alice, you know, whatever the hell that was. There are languages where that would actually be a pretty normal way of saying it.
For everybody, both speaker and listener. So
yeah, he's brought up, Riveroon says, he's brought up several interesting aspects of language, but in a framework that is like an erasure of transphobia and the cost of that. Yeah, exactly. Like, and I would feel very different as well if he had started this out by saying, like, you know, by obviously taking a clear stand and saying, yeah, trans people have every right to be treated decently. You know, and that includes respecting their genders, respecting their pronouns, and not fucking around with it. If he had started out by that and said, but here's some interesting stuff about pronouns. And in this context, and I really hope, you know, that he might bring this up, but I don't think he will, because I think we're running out of items on this list. But, like, you know, all the people who are like, oh, these pronouns are so hard and everything like that. There are entire languages where every single pronoun you use varies depending on your relationship to the people you're talking to and the people you're talking about. Like, Vietnamese has an extremely rich system of pronouns that will vary. Like, I will vary depending on who you are and who you are in relation to the person you're talking to. Same with he and she and they and all of them. You know, and so, you know, people who are like, oh, I can't get my head around singular they, that's so hard, that's so unnatural. It's like, I mean, like, Vietnamese is over here like, hey, do you even, you really should not talk. Because, you know, in Vietnamese, you can be toi, you can be minh, you can be em, you can be anh, you can be có, you can be chị, all depending on who you're talking to. And, you know, and each of those in the third person as well. And so, and like third person words, and like actually the third person pronouns often are just slight modifications of the first and second I mean, the whole thing is very fluid, is my point. So people who are complaining that they're, like, getting used to, you know, often the people who are complaining the most about it are the people who are absolutely just don't want to make an effort because, again, it's about not respecting trans people. It's not about, like, linguistic difficulties. It's like...
Just as the people saying it's impossible to learn new pronouns are wrong, the people acting like it's the easiest thing in the world are
non-existent.
Also very wrong. But all of that ignores the bigger, deeper...
Or would be if they existed.
Issue. 5. You're wrong about culture. A huge overlooked part of the pronoun debate is that both sides have unspoken, culturally informed assumptions that dramatically influence how we think about this conversation.
Oh, good. Are we gonna... Like, is he ever really going to acknowledge... He's not going to acknowledge the stakes of this. He's not going to acknowledge what the actual debate is about.
Advocates used to refer to so-and-so's, quote, preferred pronouns. Now,
which sucked.
People will say my pronouns are.
Yeah, because preferred pronouns suggest that actually we all know that that their real pronouns are this, but we're going to humor them and use their preferred ones, and that sucks. That's why people stop doing that.
Here's the thing. This is one cultural approach among many. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I am saying it's not universal.
What? Okay, not universal meaning what?
In English, we talk about third-person pronouns. Literally, how someone talks about us when they're not talking to us.
Yes, true.
To say that I, as an individual, can determine how I'm spoken about by others, even when I'm not around, is on the extreme individualist end of the individualist-collectivist continuum.
No, not really. Because for, like, literally everybody else, what we're talking about is whether trans people get to be treated with the same respect as everyone else does. It's not about extreme individualism.
And the extreme individualists on the other side will predictably say, you can't tell me what words are supposed to come out of my mouth. We don't have to go into a deep dive on thinking about dimensions of culture like Geert Hofstede's classic Culture's Consequences.
This just got so much fucking worse. Welcome back, Erica. You just got to the part where this got so much... Because he's now explaining how actually wanting to be... wanting to have... not to be misgendered when people are talking about you is extreme individualism. You know, despite the fact that this is just sort of a general cultural expectation for literally everybody else. Yeah, he's doing that. Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. I actually liked this video better when he was moving away from talking about the actual topic of discussion that he invoked with his title and talking about random stuff about how pronouns work. I thought that was interesting, at least. But here, I mean, here he is talking about something where you absolutely cannot dodge the stakes. You can either acknowledge what the stakes are of the actual stakes of the debate, namely, do trans people get treated with, at the very least, the same level of respect that everybody else takes for granted, or not? And what are the consequences of that for trans people's ability to live in the society? Or you can say everybody's just extreme individualists and not acknowledge what's going on at all. Because I'm pretty sure he not only reasonably expects that people will refer to him as he when he's not there, and that he is actually correct in expecting that.
To see that there are other ways of thinking about this. In a highly collectivist or community-oriented culture, I might simply assume that the categories that already exist in my culture are what I can choose from. This raises questions of how new categories emerge, and that if I want to be referred to in a certain way, it's up to others to choose to refer to me in that way.
Yes, but the point is, those choices are not just neutral choices. And the question becomes, what are the factors there? And one of those factors are, like, are you going to show, like, the basic respect for the person? I mean, this is, you know, for a... this is, like... Could we just acknowledge that he doesn't acknowledge the stakes, and then he says all this shit? He talks
So my appearance, my behavior, and so on can influence that, but I don't get to determine it any more than I get to determine. But I don't get to determine it any more than I get to determine. But I don't get to determine it any more than I get to determine my adjectives, handsome, intelligent, or what nouns are used to refer to me.
I've got some adjectives and nouns for you right now, actually.
Zaddy.
Yeah, but the point is, it's like, it's, first of all, these are different categories. Like, I mean, seriously, a linguist ought to understand that there is a difference between acknowledging a person's gender and what, like, how they're spoken of in a more general sense. MRW? Men's rights activist?
I'll reiterate that I'm on the side of inclusion and kindness, so when...
Like, I mean, even this really just falls flat. He said that before. Inclusion and kindness. Like, what the fuck does that mean, though? Like, I mean, you can find plenty of people who, like, who treat trans people with zero respect and will say, oh, they're being kind. You know, actually, if you actually listen to, like, the fucking Westboro Baptist Church motherfuckers, they will claim that what they're doing is being kind because they're trying to keep you out of hell. You know, and that may be entirely cynical, or they may actually have convinced themselves in their fucked up minds that that's what they're doing. But it's why saying inclusion and kindness in this, you know, does not actually address the thing. My reaction when. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's like, he saved the worst for last here.
When someone tells me how they feel they should be referred to, I respect that. But it also means that when people ask me my pronouns, I don't really have a satisfying answer. Call me...
yeah, really? You don't have a satisfying answer, so you would absolutely have no problem if everyone was constantly, like, calling you she or something like that. You absolutely would have no objection if people were constantly saying that. And gendering you in a way that very clearly, I'm going to just guess here because you have not said anything that suggests otherwise, and I think actually he has said some things that very clearly speak to this. You know, I think you might find that there's a processing cost to being constantly misgendered, to use your term, because it's annoying and makes your brain tired. And in extreme cases, makes your brain tired of continuing to have any electrical activity at all.
Whatever you want when you're talking about me, just so long as it ain't late for supper. Other straight guys might be livid at being called she, but I don't get that. And there's plenty of aspects of my identity
well, maybe
that are
if
important.
you don't get that. First of all, I mean, he's talking about hypotheticals. It has not happened to him. It would just be as an idiosyncratic thing because he is a fucking straight cis dude. And and it's just not going to happen. So, which is why you might want to actually look into people who it does happen to. And see whether they share your feelings, and maybe their feelings also matter in this. And maybe the fact that the people who are most vocal about not respecting their description, respecting their pronouns, respecting their gender, might be doing something more than just fucking, I don't know, extreme individualism. Maybe they're doing actually a bigotry or something like
that. To me that some other people fail or refuse to acknowledge out of prejudice, malice, disagreement, or sheer ignorance.
Well, or because you, clearly identify as somebody who should have an opinion in this subject, in this discussion, and whose opinion should have some kind of weight. And I have to say, I'm not seeing it. Your opinion, you identify as a person whose opinions weigh a hell of a lot more than they actually read when you put them on the scale of what this fucking discussion is actually about.
This applies to both my self-conception, handsome, intelligent, and my group memberships, AE speaker, Jew. Of course, some of those have established norms and boundaries, so you can't just claim to be a PhD or a Jew based on vibes alone. And some are gradient. I can get certified at C2 in French, but not African American English.
Now, why is that, do you think? Why do you think that some languages don't actually, where there's no formal recognition? Because maybe that's also one of those things, maybe you could do a fucking listicle on that. And explain how, and manage to talk about how there's so little, official recognition of AAVE as a language in, anywhere, without ever talking about the fact that there is racism.
And what would it mean to be certified as a man or a woman?
What would it mean? Have you checked your ID documents? What would it, the real hypothetical, if we want to get hypothetical about it, is what if we did not have any such certification system? Or what if that certification system actually, really took into account what we all have to say about ourselves? You are that.
Dare I ask you to leave a comment below? And if
I do not want to look at the comments on this fucking video.
Talking about my group memberships and multiple identities, I'm large, I contain multitudes, maybe I don't always want to have that discussion with every damn buddy.
I wonder if there are marginalized people who also feel the same way.
That's why, number 6, you're wrong.
Oh God, he's gonna tell us oh God, this is gonna get worse. I knew this was gonna get worse. Yeah, I didn't see it. Yes. This is a conlang that uses English vocabulary and grammar, but with an entirely different semantics. Very true. Yeah, absolutely. He is coming into this discussion from a fucking parallel universe. And I'm not gonna say that Spock has facial hair in his parallel universe, but I'm not feeling like it's a parallel universe where Spock doesn't have facial hair.
wrong about inclusion. Choosing to share what pronouns correspond to your gender identity is a way of normalizing open discussion and acceptance of what people sometimes call, quote, non-traditional genders.
That's all I got.
It's not a perfect phrase, I know. Makes sense as a
Yeah, you could say that. You could say it's not a perfect.
reasonable way of normalizing inclusion. But sometimes, in the spirit of inclusion, we go a little far. Requiring people to share their pronouns means that you either force people to out themselves, not great, or choose to be in the closet, not great. It means that people who can't identify a pronoun, remember that's most people, are put on the spot, and they know it's a question that will affect how people think of them as moral beings in the world.
You're saying that maybe there are actually kind of high stakes for being identifiably not cis? It would have been nice if this had been acknowledged in the whole 14 minutes and 13 seconds of discussion that preceded. Because it seems like that's a kind of an important point.
But they don't quite grok the question in the first place. It's bad vibes all around. It also might put different social pressures in conflict with one another.
There are social pressures. Wow. He got there. He noticed that there are social pressures.
I was at a conference a few years back, and one of my colleagues who was an expert on the N-word, yes, that one, he's got a book about it coming out soon, put the N-word, no R, as his pronoun on the right-in part of the name tag.
Okay.
Yes, it can function as a pronoun, and yes, it's literally an important part of his identity, but also it's a social taboo for anyone who's not black. That's like 98% of the conference to say that word, let alone in addressing a black man.
And this immediately raises the question, is that in fact how he wanted? Did he do that because he wanted people to refer to him that way? Did he do that because he was making a joke about the subject of his research that he's known for? Or did he do that in order to take the piss out of the idea of acknowledging what pronouns people have and acknowledging people's gender and stuff? I mean, there are a lot of ways that you can read that. And maybe, I mean, it seems like this is somebody he knows, so maybe it might have come up in conversation. He could have asked, is this actually how you want everybody to refer to you? And he could have said yes or no. James O'Keefe. Yeah, except he did say that the person was a black man. And James O'Keefe, I'm looking at the pictures, doesn't seem to be, but...
He was highlighting the tensions around identity, speech community, self-determination, and respect. If you truly respect him, you'll respect his chosen pronoun. But you also socially cannot call him that. It was a
Yeah. Oh, it was a provocative... Like, I mean, I'm immediately wondering if this... Yeah. Is this James O'Keefe involved? Is this the guy who's associated with the fake video mill Project Veritas?
provocative move that got people talking and thinking about all of these levels of language.
Yeah. We've moved away from acknowledging acknowledging the stakes.
And yes, it was at a linguistics conference, basically the only place that would land. And it's not just that word. People who may want, prefer, demand, or expect other pronouns may do so for a variety of reasons.
Really?
I've come across a few people who take delight in causing others confusion and
Well,
watching them work it out in real time. That's
yeah, but again, that is let's see. We were talking about people being wrong about culture a couple of minutes ago. Well, here's the thing. The reason that people get confused around the third person singular pronouns for a non-binary person, oh, and they're using different ones, and that is because there are certain cultural normative expectations around these things that are being challenged.
a tiny minority of a group that's already a tiny minority. It's also a real phenomenon. Another issue is that people...
Yeah, I mean, it's weird how that gets a mention. That tiny minority that's also a real phenomenon that we absolutely must acknowledge, gets more of a mention than what this discussion's actually about when the fucking public discourse on pronouns.
People who don't respect you are going to find a way to show it anyway.
Well, there's no harm in taking one way away from them. I mean, you could say the same thing about creating a cultural taboo against using racial slurs, for example. Yeah, they're going to find other ways to show you disrespect. Yeah, make them have to look for it. Take away one obvious, easy one for them. If they want to continue showing disrespect, they're going to have to put in more effort. It will have more processing cost. Fuck them. You could make this argument about, just about any rule of, social... any kind of rule of, social conviviality, social etiquette, or whatever.
Even the people who think that there are only two genders and you can't change them will intentionally misgender straight, cisgender people for social reasons.
What social reasons? Well, apart from the one where they will often assume that somebody's trans and they're not, because they have, a non-normative gender presentation in some way, which is a whole fucking thing. But, it's nice that he just, we're 15 minutes into this video, and he's just acknowledged that intentional misgendering is a thing. In this video about why the gender-critical right and the woke left are both wrong.
So your best case scenario is that you at least can sort people into those who try to be respectful and those who don't behave like civilized adults.
You think that isn't something people are already doing? Welcome to the fucking state of the discussion. He just noticed, that people actually do recognize the difference. What was Oliver Wendell Holmes in some decision on intent said that even dogs know the difference between being tripped over and kicked. And he's just only recently begun to acknowledge that maybe people who get tripped over a lot, metaphorically speaking, can tell the difference between that and being intentionally kicked. Where was this when we were talking about culture and easy and how hard versus easy it is to adopt neo-pronouns and shit? Where was that acknowledgement there? Yeah, that's true. People do know the difference between it being intentionally misgendered and people taking a minute to get used to it. For fuck's sake. Yeah, for social reasons. Yeah, that's exactly.
Which is not nothing. So what do we do with all this information?
Oh, wow.
Well,
that's so big of you to acknowledge. Person who, as you just acknowledged, basically never has to deal with this and therefore feels absolutely nothing about the hypothetical possibility that somebody might intentionally misgender it.
If you believe there's a global trafficking ring being run by one political party out of the basement of a pizza parlor that doesn't even have a basement, and you're waiting for your orders from JFK, then I'm not sure I can say anything useful. And if you're changing your pronouns every third hour or so just to mess with people, you get what you get.
Those are, of course, the fucking poles of the discussion. Seriously. Oh god, this is worse than I thought. This is actually managed. I came into this, people who were there, like when I was looking at the very beginning, and I think pretty much that's chat. You were, I think, all there at the time. Were noticing that I was like already saying that the presumption of good faith and the benefit of the doubt were wearing thin, and that we were starting to see some red flags. This got worse than I thought it was going to be. This sucks. This really sucks. This actually went from being shitty in the sense that it's a discussion of linguistic concepts that has been shoehorned into a discussion that he doesn't really want to acknowledge the stakes of, to taking a shitty position in that discussion. From a position of not being the one who is facing really high stakes.
The rest of us, if you just want to be a decent person who respects others' identities, even if you don't fully understand them, here's 3 ideas. The third is contentious, admittedly, and you may not agree.
Oh god. Oh no. Maybe just shut up about the contentious things. You have not been doing well with the contentious things.
With me, so take it with a grain of salt.
Oh, why a grain? Why not just get one of those big fucking salt licks they put out for deer?
1. Don't force people to categorize themselves for your gratification.
This is the real problem. This is the real problem that's going on. That was very important to give that pride of place as number 1.
It's the same with gender as it is for genetic ancestry and ethnicity. It's never great to demand, "What are you?" to someone. And it's hardly ever actually relevant. When they're ready for you to know, they'll share what they want to share. I might be in the minority here, but I always felt like Pat was not the butt of the joke on that.
Pat was the butt of the joke. Pat absolutely was the butt of the joke. The whole thing was about laughing at Pat and Pat's androgyny and shit.
SNL's It's Pat. Pat just shows up to work and shares birthday cake and lives their life. 2.
Yes, and that's what makes it funny.
When people do
that's why it's supposed to be funny. That's why it was such a shitty sketch that they kept on coming back to.
If you respect them, you'll respect what they share.
What the fuck does that mean, though? What if people, what if people share that, like, they're big transphobes, for example, since we're talking about pronouns, which, let's be honest, in this case, it's not actually a discussion about pronouns. As he kind of, like, acknowledged in a really sort of shitty backhanded way very early on, it's actually a discussion about whether to treat marginalized people with basic respect. But, there's some things that people share and they absolutely should not be respected for it.
If that means pronouns that are hard for you, then doing that brain-tiring work of learning and using new pronouns is behavior that demonstrates that respect.
See, I would, why not lead with that? Why not lead with some acknowledgement that the actual stake is like treating people with respect or not?
And it's about as hard as talking to someone who just keeps using pronouns the normal way, but ambiguously. Did you hear about Fred and Steve? He told him he'd see him tomorrow, but he didn't see him. But it turned out he was there because he just wasn't looking in the right place. 3. This one's the contentious one.
Okay. I can't wait.
Linguists talk about something called audience design, meaning choosing how you talk to someone based on who you're talking to. I've seen instances where people...
yeah, I mean, and you could do a whole thing on who he's clearly talking to with this. Because he's clearly designed this, like, from the title and the framing to the content. He has a certain audience in mind. And I think we can draw some very useful, very stress testable, reliable conclusions on what that is. And in particular, his audience is not trans people.
People intentionally use pronouns they know won't be understood.
Like, how often? And don't show us that one fucking YouTube comment again. I can show you. I mean, like, if we're talking YouTube comments, you realize the range of random, completely irreproducible shit that you could claim is a social phenomenon based on the fact that there's one YouTube comment.
Without clarification, to refer to someone who's not present. That sends a signal to the listener that you don't actually care about.
Well, how do they know they're not understood? Like, there's a lot of assumptions in here.
Communicating with them, and you're prioritizing someone who isn't even there in the first place, over treating the listener with respect.
So, what? Okay. So, what are you suggesting? Because it seems like the way. Well, like, why is the listener completely. Like, has the listener not had it explained to them that this person's pronouns are something that they're just not expecting? Like, I'm trying to map this to an actual interaction. Because he's trying to create a zero-sum game where you can treat your listener with respect, or you can speak respectfully of a marginalized person.
To me, that feels kind of shitty.
To me, a lot of this whole fucking video feels kind of shitty, to be honest. But this, like, weird-ass hypothetical that you totally witnessed also feels kind of shitty.
If your goal is to show your commitment to a social movement or an ideal,
and this is like, so he's practically just saying transgender ideology
at the expense of your relationship with the listener, then that's a fine strategy.
Well, what about your relationship with the person you're talking about? Does that matter? It seems like you've already sort of dismissed that. Why is that? And we're just assuming that the listener, for some reason, isn't capable of understanding this. Like, he doesn't say in what context.
I generally fall on the side of audience design and showing respect for the people that you're actually talking with. And in some cases, this might mean using pronouns the listener will understand.
Well, you've just explained that actually it's not that hard for people to understand the pronouns. So why would you just start with misgendering the person? Why not just start with explaining these are this person's pronouns? Like, why do we immediately have to resort to this?
Rather than the pronouns.
Speaking of things that are shitty,
the absent third party would insist on. You may disagree about what the trade-off is there and where to draw the line.
You don't even acknowledge what the trade-off is and why you're drawing this line this way. You just sort of act like this is the only option. I mean, I'm still struggling to come up with an example of where this would be the case. Like, where I'm struggling to find a single situation where, absent, like, dementia, or something like that, where somebody has a serious cognitive problem and perhaps they, as a result of that, like, they have no recollection of this person having transitioned and they just can't follow it, or something like that. That is a very specific sort of situation and not at all referenced in his description there. But other than that, he has not explained why in this situation he insists is not hypothetical. You wouldn't just say, hey, these are this person's pronouns. That's just how that's their pronouns, and that should clear it up.
If it's clear it's not malice, I'm definitely fine with listening for what people are trying to say rather than what they actually do say. Things are rarely black and white, and we have to figure out how to navigate the gray in ways that...
Yeah, I mean, and here's what speaking of malice, because it's like, I've been spending this entire time trying to decide, is he just absolutely this fucking clueless that he does not understand what's going on, or does he know exactly what he's doing? Because the level of shittiness of this video depends entirely on whether he just really does not understand the stakes, entirely possible, or whether he knows exactly what the stakes are, and he's said some things that suggest he does, and he's just trying to create some sort of space where people who would like to see trans people vanish off the face of the earth and would be fine with people trying to make that happen have a point and need to be respected in the conversation. Because that's kind of what this all feels like. That is both sides bullshit. Fuck that. There are not two equally legitimate sides here. And I can't help noticing that he extends way more presumption of good faith towards the side that literally wants to see trans people morally mandated out of existence. And that's kind of a shitty thing to do.
You know, demonstrates respect for one another. I guess another way to say that things aren't always black and white.
Douchebag. That's good. Yeah, that's exactly right. That is exactly why this video has been so hard to deal with on a live without having pre-watched it or anything, because trying to figure out just exactly how shitty he's being and how just clueless and how much of this is just cluelessness and how much of it is deliberate shittiness is actually hard. But you know, as it's gone on, and it's gone on and on and on and on, it's become a little bit clearer. But, I mean, we are running out of time here. I am going to be wrapping up really quickly.
Is to say, sometimes things aren't binary. One thing's for sure.
You don't get to make that fucking joke after this video.
Arguing with people about their identity is never effective, and
that's the objection, that it's not effective. That's not. Speaking of things that require an antecedent, effective requires some indication of purpose. You can't say something is effective or not effective without making some assumptions or having some concept of what the intention is.
And always a waste of time. And having to defend your own identity is always exhausting.
Yeah, it has a bit of a processing cost, you might say.
And to make things worse, the entire discussion is predicated on a mix of ignorance of linguistics, biology, sociology.
Well, nobody think of the linguists.
And culture, and the places where those don't line up. So everybody should maybe just take a few deep breaths.
God, thank you, guy who has absolutely no stake in the discussion. We all needed to be told to calm down by the guy who has made it clear this does not affect him.
Not everybody has to agree. The problem is when this goes from abstract philosophical differences,
which this never was,
is to trying to take people's rights away, or
I wonder if that has any
threatening them with harm.
I wonder if that is anything to do with the discussion we're having.
And part of why I wanted to make this video is to point out that basically everything people are saying about pronouns is wrong. In part because it's not really about pronouns.
See, again, in things that you really should have said straight up.
It's about societal acceptance of different sexual orientations and social gender.
Like, okay, now I feel like Charlie Brown with the football. This motherfucker just Lucy'd me. I just went up and kicked it because I thought he was about to say it's about treating marginalized people with respect, and I should have known better. I absolutely should have known better because I've sat through this whole bloody video. And if he was going to say that, he would have said it before. And if that were really the point he was trying to hammer home, we would have heard more of it. Yeah, he treats culture as if it's an a priori given that does not change, and as if, you know, anyone, the people who are trying to change the culture in order to create space for their existence are somehow the baddies. Or as George W. Bush put it, fool me twice, don't get fooled again.
And it's about the tension between self-determination, this is who I am, and other people's self-determination.
Oh, God. Oh god. It's like, this is what it must have felt like to bat. What it must feel like to bat at the pitch in Nassau County, the what is now like certified the worst, most dangerous pitch in international cricket, where where balls hitting at the exact same spot will do radically different things. The same ball that that was bowled at 90 miles an hour and hit your whiz past your knee pads the first time is actually going for your jaw the next time. This is what that must be like.
I choose how I speak, and you can't impose your view of the world on me. Socially and politically, I work to expand people's rights and the protection of those rights. And in my work life,
well, like, why couldn't you talk about those commitments up front? Why do you have to? Although this video actually kind of calls them into like how seriously committed you are, because you clearly aren't really listening to the discussion in a way that suggests that you're really engaged with it, and you're talking in this most annoying sort of blowhard white liberal way where you like are trying to suggest that like just reactionary bigoted fucks have a point when they really don't. Oh god.
I work to help people interact effectively across these kinds of differences.
Yes, he did say that that's self-determination. That wanting to have who you are as a human being respected is somehow on the same level as wanting to be respected for what an asshole you are.
Personally, I'm working on navigating that tension around audience design, and I'm
like the captain of the Titanic was
trying to just accept people where they are. If that means using a pronoun that doesn't click for me because it's upsetting when I don't, that's fine.
Ooh, wow, that's big of you. That's big of you. Do you treat not using the N-word like a favor too?
Especially when it's only a theoretical or a philosophical question for me, but for the other person, it's their life.
It's really, like, considering how few people actually watch to the end of the average YouTube video, I don't know the analytics on this. This would be the thing to lead with, if you care. This would be the thing you start out with, to say, this isn't about an abstractly linguistic discussion about what pronouns are and how we use antecedents and shit. This is about people's lives. This is about whether people get to be treated with respect in society or whether people get shat on. That's what you fucking lead with, because if there's one thing that people are wrong about the discussion about pronouns, including this jabroni, like, well, that's a little plug for what's going on at 11:30 on my other channel. It's that the stakes of the debate are just constantly just misrepresented.
In some cases, it's related to a struggle that is literally life or death. But also, that means recognizing that someone's not up to date with the newest terminology but is approaching an interaction out of mutual respect. I'm going to respect that as well.
Well, are you going to respect the fact that you might not be the person to be making that call? Like, maybe since this is not something, like, he's been so demonstratively unaffected by this personally, that maybe he should look to the people for whom this is a survival instinct to say, is this and take their cues on whether the person in question is in fact trying and just fucking up a little bit versus being deliberately hurtful. Maybe he's not the one maybe you're not the one to make that judgment, dude.
Gotta live with that tension. To quote Gene Kelly, I've had one motto, which I've always lived by.
Ugh.
Dignity. Always dignity. Promised this one would be spicy, and I'd love to know...
No. This is as spicy... This shit is as spicy as an unsalted potato. This is not a spicy take. This is the blandest thing on the menu.
Know your thoughts on neopronouns and who gets to decide how we refer to one another. So leave me a comment. If you like
This is so unspicy that you could use this video if you've run out of Imodium.
Like what I'm doing with the channel, please like and subscribe. I want to give a big thanks to all of my patrons on Patreon, back at...
Okay, it is time to wrap up. Thanks to everyone who joined in. Thanks to everyone who stuck it out through that video. I've been like actually I've had that in my reaction fodder, my reaction stuff list for months and months and months and months and months. I have been like dreading pulling it out because I didn't want to. You know, there was just so many ways that it could possibly go wrong. It went wrong in so many of them. But yeah, so that's it. And yeah, let me just drop the link so you can see the latest in the where the hell is it? Yeah, here we go. All of the latest in the Inessa Armand translation project. I have done now 17 of her works, 10,000 words that had previously not been available in English. And I'm doing more and more as, you know, every week. I'm trying to raise $8,500 to cover the entire cost of translating and editing the roughly 70,000 words. And so far, I'm nearly a third of the way there, thanks to everyone who has supported me in that. And because it not only does it help me do this, it helps me just kind of keep my head above water in a really shitty time because, you know, the AI grift is kind of killing my killing the employability of my profession, at least for as long as it takes for the bubble to burst and people to start getting their asses sued because of the horrible crap that machine translation actually puts out that most people just don't realize. And because of the Dunning-Kruger and how that is an organizing principle of a lot of executive decision making. Have a good evening, and I hope to see you at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time for the last JabroniCon. See you soon. I will be back on Twitch tomorrow. That's at the same time. Have a good evening. Time for me to do some other stuff and make food things and recover from that really, really shitty video. Thank you.